Yeah, man. Hold on for a minute. Let's get right for a minute, man. Checking my Facebook page.
Purchase your tracks today.
And my Instagram page. And my Snapchat page. We'll get it back.
See you flossing on Instagram, stay posting on Facebook.
It's the I See What You're Doing podcast. I'm Mr. I See What You're Doing, and as always, I see what you're doing.
Shit, man, need I say more? I will, but I mean, I just want to know, do I need to say more? Once again, I'm back like I left something every Thursday at 5 o'clock. And shout out to all the people that showed up with me to hear me do my thing. I would do a roll call, but eventually I'm going to find out who's here, who's with me, and who's against me, and who's just neutral in this thing like I am. Because once again, I would always like to let you know that I'm being neutral. Robin. Hey, babe. Robin, hey, babe. I knew you was going to show up. Hashtag professional agitator. I'm going to get that on the shirt. Hashtag professional agitator. Robin got a crush on me, by the way. I don't know why she won't admit it, but, you know, it makes me feel good. I'm glad to see that you're here, Robin. I wasn't going to do a roll call with Joe. Joe, you got 5 seconds to make yourself seen, bro. I need to know you here because I got to have my support system with me every time. Check in, Joe. We waiting on you, man. Got a lot of stuff to talk about. I woke up this morning and I was concerned. And the concern was this right here. You feel me? And this is not a Democratic thing or a Republican thing. This is a people thing. We watch a lot of news, right? And I know I always try to find the worst parts of it. I'm just bullshitting. I don't try to find the worst parts of it. I just tend to kind of point out the things that you should be looking at, and contrary to what you do look at, right? Because it's not all entertainment. This shit is not entertainment. At this particular point in our country, we are at a critical point in our country because we wanted to make this country, and our parents wanted to make this country better than we found it for our kids and future generations. The thing is going in reverse now because it's not getting better; it's getting worse. You have an attack on DEI. You have an attack on food. Gas was $5 somewhere. I think I saw, man. And the president retracted a statement on his moniker, "Make America Great Again," because he realizes that moniker is in that statement is a fictitious one, and it could never be true because, I mean, that would implicate, like I said before, that America was great and then it wasn't great, and then he came along to make it great. Now, the problem I have with that is a lot of people did not catch that particular play. Okay? It was just motivating to think that someone was running for president that was a TV star. And the only other person I can remember that was Ronald Reagan. Had came into the political scene and had become the president. No problem with that. I mean, to each his own. Do what you will with your life, and if people support you, that's fine. It's not that you became president that bothered me. It was the way. It was the thing. It was the ideology you had when you became president, and it's not agreeable. You feel me? And now there's a push to reverse the things that have been done to make this country more comfortable for everybody, and apply pressure back on people, immigrants, poor people, people in certain tax brackets, African American people, indigenous people, those type of things, right? And then I began to question myself because I come here and say this stuff every week, and the big call that I have is for accountability amongst everybody who utilizes a platform and anybody in the public eye. And I want you to remember that when you become a public official, you are in the public eye, so you have to be open to public opinion, right? But the fear is that there's going to be a retaliation against anyone who goes against the ideology and the agenda of our sitting president. Mind you, we've done this against, we we've had people speak up against George W. Bush the son, Jeb Bush in the state of Florida, spoke out against Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, all public officials, Richard Nixon. Some people applauded when JFK got assassinated. Those type of things happen in the world. Okay? So no one's immune to this particular format or the narratives that go into these shows, because we're all voicing our opinions and we're all voicing our thoughts. Just so happens that we have platforms to voice them, but nonetheless, we have an opportunity to voice our thoughts. Whether you agree with it or not, that's different. Now, why did I say all that? Somebody please hold this man accountable for the stuff that he says and remind him of what he's saying, so that later when he say he didn't say that, you have some kind of documentation or some kind of evidence that he said it. Okay? I get it. My man is over the age of 80, so he may be slipping a little bit. Notice I said maybe, because it could all be an act. It could all be something. It could all be a show. Okay? We could all be at the circus watching the Ringmaster. Okay? The title of this episode is War, Power, and the Politics of Truth, because there are politics behind truth, right? There's a game being played. The world is the stage, and everybody has to play their part. Outkast, snippet from an Outkast song. Shout out to Andre 3000. If you know, you know. Tonight's episode is not just about war. It's about how truth itself gets shaped, reshaped, and sometimes manipulated during moments of global tension. What we're witnessing right now is not just a geopolitical situation unfolded between the United States and Iran, but a real-time example of how narratives are built, pushed, challenged, and sometimes distorted before the full facts even have time to settle. Follow me down the rabbit hole, because I know that you feel sometimes I show up here, in Robin's words, to be a professional agitator. I didn't show up this time to do that. I'm going to do it anyway, but I didn't show up with that on my mind. We have a developing ceasefire that both sides interpret differently, which already creates instability. Before any agreement can even take hold, and I had to type this here, write this down, because sometimes the last time I did this, prior to me coming back into I See What You're Doing, or revamping this particular podcast, it just sounds like a whole bunch of rants. But these are calculated thoughts, so just hear me out as I give you the thought for today. Before any agreement can take hold, at the same time, we have a new automatic selective service registration. Stay with me, because I'm telling you what we're going into as we go along. Selective service registration system being introduced, which, while on paper, administratively, has triggered emotional reactions across the public because of what people believe it represents. We also have political leaders revisiting past events and making claims that do not fully align with documented records, raising deeper questions and credibility and leadership. And on top of that, we see global figures like the Pope stepping into conversations. He went political. He stepped into political conversations. The most holy man on our planet is now giving his opinion on political actions, offering moral criticism. Thou shalt not judge. That adds another layer of complexity to an already tense situation. But what really brings all this together is the speed of information. Social media, headlines, and viral narratives are moving faster than verified facts. So when it hits you, it's some of the stuff what I'm saying is some of the stuff they're putting on TV reaches you, and it's not fact checked. So now we have a situation where I'm getting ready to make some corrections to our media. That's what this show is about, me making corrections to media and the information that they're putting out. Because until you decide that you want to go and do the research for yourself, you're going to go into you're going to look at the news and read this information and find out that all of it's not true. And you don't want to make a rush decision before you find this out. The information you get from here is fact check. So I make sure I fact check it, track it down, call it. So it creates an environment where people are forced to form opinions before they have complete information. That's why I come here, to give you the information so you can go back and fact check it and make sure it's true, and then form your own opinions. Agitating it, basically. That is where the real danger lies, not just in what's happening, but how it's being understood. This episode is designed to slow everything down, to separate what is confirmed from what is contested, to challenge the frame of these stories, and understand not just the events themselves, but force shaping how those events are presented. Because in today's world, whoever controls the narrative often controls reality and how reality is perceived. And when perception replaces truth, decision-making becomes flawed. Let's get into our first story. The automatic federal registration system for selective service. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the United States government moving toward implementing an automatic selective service registration system for eligible men, following the passage of the FY 2026 National Defense Authorization Act. Traditionally, individuals were responsible for registering themselves with a selective service system, typically at age 18. In high school, that's where most young men choose Army, Navy, Air Force, or Marines. You do that in high school. It just happens to be that that's the way that it was done. Under this new structure, that responsibility shifts from the individual to the government. Shifts from the individual to the government, with federal systems handling the registration process automatically through integrated data systems. They getting your information, whether it's from school or from wherever it's from. They compiling it, figuring out that you're 18 or you finna be 18. So that basically I would think would be them going into the school system, you know, saying and checking your birth date and whatever, and determining that you finna be 18 and that you should be selectively selecting a military branch to go into. My problem with that is that you don't get a chance to choose which one you want to go to. So it's almost like playing the lottery. And if you have to go into the military, and the other thing is they taking away, well, they forcing you to do something that you may not want to do. Right? I know it was a law, but everybody has not done selective service. Right? This represents a significant operational change. However, it is critical to clarify that this does not activate any military draft, nor does it mean individuals are being involuntarily listed into military services. The legal requirement to register has existed for decades. What is changing is the method of enforcement and compliance. So listen, I disagree with that second part, because why would you automatically register someone for the military, right? It doesn't mean that they drafting you or they putting you into the military. But as I said before, you don't get an opportunity to say, hey, I like the Marines. Hey, I like the Air Force. Hey, I like the... Because there's no way that you just gonna register them for military service and it not be connected to a branch. When I did it, registered, and I chose the branch that I like better than the other. I don't know if everybody did it that way, but that's how I did it. Right? Gretchen, do you think this war is going to go nuclear? Gretchen asked, do I think this war is going to go nuclear? I hope not. But I mean, at this particular point, who's to say? I mean, it's like flipping the coin. I mean, that's what's the reason for them going to the United States going to Iran. And pause right there. Let me clarify. The United States is going and went into a war on the behalf of Israel. Just for you guys that don't understand that or don't know what happened. They're acting in coalition or in unison or as an ally of Israel. So this war really is not about oil. It's not about the United States being offended by a nuclear program, because I had already explained to you that Iran always had a nuclear program. America helped them build it. We went all the way back to 1953, and I told you how it played out. You take the man out that you don't want in office, and you put in the plant that you want in office, so that you can get the shit that you want done. The shit just backfired because the new guy that comes in after him takes control of the country again and all of the resources, and now you got to find somebody else to put in place. It sounds like Venezuela, doesn't it? Why does that happen? The primary driver behind this change is efficiency and compliance. Like I said, a lot of people are not complying with it. I'm going to register for the military, so numbers in the military are low. Not because nobody's registering, because I mean, I'm not saying that being in the military is either good or bad, but I mean, when you get there, you have more people come out and say shit was negative. And even some of the people who have the positive result from going to the military, it's like shit, it wasn't all it was cracked up to be. Historically, many individuals either failed to register or were unaware of that requirement. See, they didn't even know. They didn't register or they didn't know. Leading to penalties that could impact access to federal student aid, government employment, and other opportunities. By automating the process, the government aims to eliminate gaps in compliance and modernize a system that has long relied on manual participation. It means that you show up and you register. They usually tell you that, like I said, in high school, but nobody's going to do that. This might be, I'm going to have to push this along, because this could be a long story. I tell you what, we'll go through half, and if we run out of time, I'll bring the other half back next week. I'm just bullshitting because I got a lot of stuff I need to get done with this. At the same time, the move reflects a broader trend towards centralization and centralized data systems and increased government integration of personal information. They want to get the information. They need information on everybody. They go and bog it. I mean, they've been collecting the information for a long time, but in this particular case, you're going to get the log, all the information. You collect the information. Not to mention they raised, as I said last week, they raised the enlistment age to 42. Now, let me pause right here because this is what I do best. I'm not even going to go into the rest of it because you kind of get the drift, right? It doesn't equate to the draft. But the timing of its implementation during a global period of instability has created public term. The phrase automatic registration can easily be misunderstood, leading to many to assume the government is preparing for potential conscription. Whether or not that assumption is accurate, the perception itself carries weight. Okay. So, if you do automatic registration, do you do that with a certain do you do that with people below a certain income line? Do you do it to certain races? We have a debate about whether kids who are well off or financially wealthy, whether they end up going to the having to enlist in the military, or is it just regular everyday people? That's the question that goes. Is it for everybody, or is it just for a certain group of 18 to 25-year-olds? Because if it's just for a certain demographic, and it's not saying here, but if it's for a certain group of 18 to 25-year-olds, then that's biased and it's totally unfair, right? Let's move on to the next one because I got the information here, and it's a lot of information. You don't know the work that it goes into to get this type of stuff done, but I mean, I'm here. Robin, you still with me? Joe, did you catch up with me, or did they tell you to leave me alone? I didn't want you to leave me just yet. By the way, if Catherine was watching, shout out to Catherine, man. Appreciate what you did last week. That was absolutely wonderful. Okay, so listen, I had a story that came across my timeline, my For You pages, the news breaking everything, and the country was in the uproar to a certain extent. I had a couple of phone calls because people know I'm going to jump and get right and find out exactly what's going on. Somebody called me and said, "Hey, did you hear what Trump said?" And I said, "No, by all means, I never listen to what Trump said. I never hear what Trump said." Of course I did. But Donald Trump, they were saying Donald Trump said that he killed Osama bin Laden. And I paused because I was offended at first, right? Because I was like, that's now it's out of hand. I know that's a lie. Because I can remember when President Obama came on television and said SEAL Team 6, and they had killed bin Laden, right? Mind you, the story that went around about bin Laden being sick, having to be on dialysis, kidneys was bad and all that. I mean, he probably was ready. You feel me? I can't say how that happened, but I mean, he might have been really tired at that particular point. But make a long story short, Donald Trump has once again leaned into the narrative that he recognized a threat posed by Osama bin Laden prior to September 11th. So he didn't say he killed him. He just said he looked and suggested that he had effectively called for decisive action. While it is true that bin Laden was mentioned in earlier writings, I wanted to fact check. Fact checking it has consistently found that stronger versions of Trump claim that he warned and advocated for that direct action before 9/11 is not supported by the documented records. And that's why I wanted to come to right here. This is why you have to be careful what's being put on the news, and you have to be able to fact check what's being said. All right. So I wanted to clear up something. First of all, he never said that he killed bin Laden. That's not what he said. At that time, Trump wasn't even the president, nor I don't believe that he had the ability to call that kind of strike on Osama bin Laden, right? I think he was still in Hollywood saying you're fired on The Apprentice or something like that. Quote, I mean, I don't know if that's true, but I'm just saying. What he did say was the thing that brought questions to me. because he never said what book it was. He just said, go back and look like you normally do. Go back and look, check my books. I was telling them back then he's the bad guy and he should be taken care of. The familiarity in that is that we had a understanding that the pilots that flew those planes into the World Trade buildings were from America, were trained in America, right? Not from America, but trained in America. And the other thing is the same Taliban and Afghans were once in cahoots, cohorts, or allies of America as well. That's why I keep trying to point out to y'all that most of the time you see this and you hear someone say this, you have to be careful about what you researching and what you're looking at. Those particular Afghanistan soldiers were trained by America. You got to remember that some of these people are arms dealers as well, trained by America. I believe that you have to have some kind of access politically to be able to point out that, because otherwise, how do you know Osama bin Laden? Unless you've been around him or had some kind of interaction with him or something like that. Unless you want to go ahead and say now that these people be in the room sharing information, and depending on how much money you have will determine how much information you're able to access. Right? I heard one of my mentors say that if you don't have the ability to pick up the phone and change the direction that the stock market is going to go in, or call the stock market and get information on how the stock market is going to go, and you don't have the you can't have the attitude of being white because you're not white. Once again, I tell you, white is an attitude that comes along with a certain amount of money. Joe Hill, man, what up, Joe? Good evening, sir. Joe said, "Good evening, sir. Having a good day." I am, Joe. I'm trying to be. I took the neutral route this time, Joe, but I'm on the news, and I just wanted to point out for journalists around the world, if you're going to tell a story, don't tell a story marred and mixed with truths and untruths. Tell that particular story, and be accurate with the facts and everything before you start to take and decide that you want to put out propaganda. And like Joe said, I'm not bashing Joe. Like Joe said, information that could possibly incite a riot. Before you do that, make sure you go and you fact check everything before you just want to drop a hot story that's inaccurate and come to find out later that you have to come back and correct the statements that you made. So why does a story like this happen? Why does Trump say he put it in the book? Because again, I wanted to clarify that he did not say he killed bin Laden. He said that he said that that's a bad guy and he needed to be taken care of or dealt with. I'm ad-libbing that may not be exactly what he said, but he warned and advocated for direct action before 9/11. That's what he said. And then after fact checking, that was not supported by the documented record. So whatever book it was that he said that in, that particular statement does not exist in any of his books. But to the point, when everybody was up in the uproar saying Donald Trump stated that he had killed Osama bin Laden, fact is he did not say that. He did not say that. So this type of narrative serves a strategic purpose by positioning himself as someone who identified this threat early. Trump reinforces the image of instinctive leadership and foresight in times of geopolitical tension. That image becomes particularly powerful as voters often gravitate toward leaders who appear decisive and ahead of the curve. He'll see it. He's someone to the future. That's what he's saying. I can see it coming before it happens, and I'll be able to stop it before it happens. This is not just about revisiting history. It's about shaping perception in the present. We're not going backwards. And he's saying, this is what I did in the past. He's setting up that so that it looks like he was solid then and he's solid. Why does that matter? The significance of this story goes Beyond the claim itself, it raises broader questions about how history is framed and used in political messaging. When leaders reinterpret past events to strengthen their credibility, it influences how the public perceives current decisions and future actions. If the past can be reshaped, it becomes easier to influence how people understand the present. Right? But the broader point was that Trump's broader point was that bin Laden was a known threat. That's valid. He was a known threat, even if the details are overstated. And secondly, by exaggerating historical claims, undermines credibility, especially during moments that require public trust. So once you say that, and we go back and research and find out that that was a lie, then we can't trust you then, because man, all you got to do is tell the truth. If you predicted or said that, then you just leave it at that. If you didn't, there's no need to say that, because somebody's going to go and find out the actual truth. You feel me? Got it. So jumping to number 3, what they said, Iran's peace framework. This was a good one for me because I went back and I checked it, right? And they said that on the news, they said Iran had a 10-point peace framework and the ceasefire framework. But, feel me? And then I went to look at it, right? And Iran had not put out a 10-point peace framework. It was Pakistan. I don't know how close Pakistan is to Iran, but Pakistan brokered a ceasefire framework between the U.S. and Iran. What happened? A ceasefire framework involving the United States and Iran has been introduced, reportedly facilitated through Pakistan as an intermediary channel. The framework outlines an immediate pause in hostilities, followed by a structured window, roughly 2 to 3 weeks, for negotiations aimed at reaching a broader and more permanent agreement. On the surface, this appears to be a step forward toward de-escalation, offering both sides an opportunity to regroup and move towards diplomacy rather than continued conflict. Which I think the thing could have been talked out on some diplomatic shit anyway, but I'm not up there with them. You feel me? I'm not up there with them. I think I'm gonna get in the political race sooner or later. Joe, what you think? You think I can win? Think I can get in and win, Joe? Robin? I'm gonna run just like this with the dreads and everything. Let me know, man. However, beneath that surface, there's a critical issue. Both sides appear to be operating under different interpretations of what the agreement actually includes. Disagreements have emerged around key elements such as nuclear policy, regional military activity, and whether the ceasefire applies beyond direct U.S.-Iran engagement, particularly in areas like Lebanon. This lack of alignment creates a situation where a ceasefire exists in name, but not in shared understanding. So there's a mix-up in that thing. Everybody's not on the same page, and you have to get on the same page, right? You have to be on the same page with this, because there has to be an agreement that says, I agree that we're going to take the next 3 weeks and we're going to become civil people and civil diplomats. And we're going to try to hash this thing out and figure out how to come to an understanding amongst both parties, so that we don't continue to have conflict and that we don't continue to shed innocent blood over nothing. You feel me? I can see, I think Truth Social, Trump woke up one morning about 5 and demanded that the Hamas Strait be open, and then he put out an ultimatum. You got until Tuesday, and then it was 2 weeks after that. And the whole thing just looked erratic, and it just looked like someone who was letting a situation that could be controlled through diplomacy, because I mean, Trump does kind of present as a business savvy guy. To a certain extent, could have had conversations about, getting this particular conflict resolved. Why does that happen? The push for a ceasefire is driven by overlapping but not identical interests. The United States is looking to reduce immediate escalation while maintaining strategic leverage and avoiding the perception of weakness on the global stage. Iran, on the other hand, is seeking security assurances and a pause in military pressure without conceding critical elements of its strategic position, particularly regarding its nuclear program and regional influence. So you're in a country where I told you they had nuclear power. Iran wants to run this country diplomatically. I can't say that America wants to be a bully, but I mean, why are we in everybody's country? Deeming them as a threat and then going in to those countries. These competing priorities created a situation where both sides were willing to agree to a pause, but not necessarily do the same long-term vision. What we're seeing is not full alignment, it's a temporary overlap. Why does this matter? Ceasefires are only effective when both parties share a clear and consistent understanding of the terms. Without that clarity, the agreement becomes fragile from the start. What is happening here highlights a deeper issue in modern diplomacy. Agreements are sometimes announced before they are fully defined, leading to confusion, misinterpretation, and a potential breakdown. Stay with me because I'm trying to get to the point where the breakdown happens. In a nutshell, a temporary ceasefire is still progress as it reduces immediate violence and opens the door for negotiation. On the other hand, an unclear agreement is not real progress. It is simply a delay that could lead to more complicated conflict later. The next one was such a good one. I had to take a step back, pray a little bit, and pull myself together. And these are my opinions, but I just don't believe. You feel me? Because that was one of the laws that religion and politics should be intertwined, but aren't they always, and haven't they always been? So there was a claim that the U.S. had threatened the Pope because of statements that he had made about Donald Trump. And I quickly got on top of the thing because I wanted to know. I was sure that that couldn't be true. The media would put the very first thing that you run into that catches your attention is the headline. And then the first paragraph after that is going to set the tone for what you believe and what you don't believe when you're dealing with the media, right? And we just want the truth. And then it makes me kind of go, damn, Trump could possibly be right when he says some of this stuff is fake news, right? I know at this particular point, somebody's out there thinking that somebody came to talk to me. What I mean, shit. And when you grow at the rate that I'm growing at mentally, I learned to slow the thing down and look at the picture. So I'm looking at it right, and I'm like, yo, is that really what happened? Possibly, maybe not. Until you fact check it and you find out. Pope Leo publicly criticized Donald Trump's rhetoric towards Iran, calling it unacceptable and raising moral concerns about the tone and implications of such statements. This criticism represents a rare and direct intervention by a global religious leader into a modern geopolitical conflict, adding a moral dimension. to what is primarily being discussed in political and military terms. At the same time, a separate claim has circulated widely suggesting that the Pentagon threatened the Pope following his criticism. However, this portion of the story has not been independently verified by major credible sources, making it a disputed and unconfirmed element of that narrative, right? So when you put up Pentagon threatens the Pope, and then if people go to look, they initially from that particular headline said, "Oh wow, the Pentagon is attacking the Pope or making threats." They make them look like gangsters, right? So in this particular country, what happens or was presented to the rest of the world concerning the United States doesn't just affect political figures. It affects all Americans, because once you hate the country and you hate anybody that comes from the country, because it's just like calling T-Mobile. You know that the person on the phone helping you with your problem is not the person that owns T-Mobile, but they the first person that answer the phone. So when you have these people going in and out of these countries, they know that those are not the people that's making the decisions, but you represent America and what we hate. That's why you got to be diplomatic about this thing, because you can't continue to put a travel ban on people who want to go see a world or see the world, and tell them to be cautious behind some shit that they didn't never have to be involved in if you just handle the thing diplomatically. War or conflict should not be the first thing. It should be the last resort. It should not be the thing that you go to, like, because you can't fight. You don't want to you don't want to fist fight because you know you're going to get beat up. But I got this gun, and if I pull mine first, I can kill everybody. Why it happened? The Pope's criticism reflects the role of moral authority in global affairs. Religious leaders often step into political conversations when issues of human life, ethics, and justice are at stake. In this case, the criticism appears to be rooted in concerns about the potential consequences of aggressive rhetoric and the broader human impact of conflict. The spread of the Pentagon claim, on the other hand, illustrates how quickly narratives can expand beyond verified facts. Once a story gains attention, additional layers, whether confirmed or not, can be added, often blurring the line between reality and speculation. Now, let's keep in mind, the Pope that sits right now is an American citizen. The man is from Chicago. The sitting Pope is an American. He's an American. He is absolutely positively from this great country, America. He's from here, right out of Chicago. So, a change in your location doesn't mean that you have to pretend not to have an opinion about the country that you originated from. You still get to say and voice your opinion. Just so happens to be that it's on a global scale. But I mean, it is absolutely possible for him to be able to say what he's saying. Do I agree with it? Separation of church and state. That's all I'm gonna say about that. I know it doesn't exist anymore, but it should still be separation of church and state. Right? Side A, the tension between moral authority and political power is real and meaningful, regardless of every detail being confirmed. The side B, the negative part of that, is unverified claims should not be treated as fact, as doing so undermines the credibility of the entire discussion. So, there you go. Right? And then we walk back into after you put up the ceasefire. After you put up the ceasefire agreement, Iran has accused the United States of violating the ceasefire due to continued military activity involving Israel and Lebanon. From Iran's perspective, the ceasefire should have applied broadly across the region, including allied actions. The United States, however, maintains that the agreement did not include Lebanon and was limited in scope to direct U.S. and Iran engagement. Remember the misunderstanding? Remember the lack of clarity? Here's the lack of clarity. You couldn't even get out of the 3-week negotiations because no one clarified what the ceasefire consists of. Remember, I told you Israel was involved in it, but the negotiations on the ceasefire did not include Israel. This has created a situation where both sides are operating under different interpretations of the same agreement, leading to accusations on one side and denial on the other side. Iran is accusing, the United States is denying, but the different interpretations of the agreement is what's causing the conflict, right? Now, why does this happen? The root of this dispute lies in the lack of clarity, defined, and mutually agreed upon. When agreements are reached quickly, especially under pressure, they may leave room for interpretation. If you don't have a clear understanding, I know I come from a time where they said, ain't nothing in the world like a good understanding. Because if you know, you know. Once you know, you know. Can't go back on that. If you understand it clearly, that's why you have to stop and ask questions and make sure you understand what's going to transpire. Because once the thing begins to happen, you can't go back and fix it. That's another conflict. There's other consequences that come behind. In this case, it appears that each side fill those gaps based on its own expectations and strategic interests, which means that they determine what the agreement meant by what they wanted out of it, not what the other person wanted out of it, not what the other person's expectations were. It was out of what they expected, what they wanted to happen, what Iran wanted to happen, with Israel and Lebanon to back out of those cities. The United States wanted a ceasefire, and at that time, and I get the thought process. Israel didn't think they was included in that. Because when I started this conversation with you guys, I told you that the United States was acting in unison with Israel, right? Why does that matter? When both sides interpreting the agreement directly or differently, the agreement itself becomes unstable. This situation demonstrates how quickly a ceasefire can shift from a point of progress to a source of tension. It also shows how language and definition play a critical role in international relations. The difference between included and not included can determine whether an action is seen as compliance or a violation. Iran's expectation of broader regional coverage is understandable given the context of the conflict. The United States cannot be held accountable for terms if it did not formally agree to the terms. So both sides are still back in the conflict because they did not take the time to get a clear understanding on what was expected and what was going to happen and who was included in the 10-point conflict resolution or ceasefire, for example, right? This is not a confirmed violation. It is a disagreement. And that distinction is critical because the way we label this situation shapes how people understand it, and ultimately how they respond to it. So this is a disagreement. It's not a confirmed violation. It's a disagreement, right? And then I started to go. Someone's been missing. And I know most of the time our vice presidents aren't that vocal, but I mean, have not seen much of J.D. Vance. Have not seen much of J.D. Vance. But I did find out this. There was a story that came out earlier that said that Trump had excluded J.D. Vance and benched J.D. Vance from negotiations in Iran. And I come to find out J.D. Vance is leading those negotiations. And then I found out that Trump made a joke, which I don't really think is a joke, that he said if the negotiations fall apart, he's going to blame J.D. Vance. That's a quick little joke. I found it. I screenshotted it, and so I can go back and research it. But contrary to circulating narratives suggesting that J.D. Vance has been sidelined or bent, current information indicates that he is actively involved in playing a leading role in diplomatic efforts related to negotiations with Iran. Whether that being removed from influence, or rather than being removed from influence, he appears to be positioned as a key figure within the administration's strategy. Why does that happen? The role likely reflects the need for a consistent and trusted representative who can communicate the administration's position while also engaging in negotiations. In complex international situations, leadership is often distributed amongst individuals who can handle both political messaging and diplomatic interaction. Okay, why does that matter to you? Because we're coming to a close. This story highlights the gap between perception and reality. Public narratives can quickly form around incomplete and inaccurate information, leading to widespread beliefs that do not reflect the actual situation. Understanding who is involved in negotiations and how matters because it shapes expectations about outcomes and accountability. The positive part is this role demonstrates trust and growing influence within the administration. The negative is increased visibility, also increased political risk if negotiations fail. Like I said, if it falls through, Trump is going to say Vance, and then it's going to become high stakes if diplomatic efforts do not succeed. It could strengthen leadership presence in negotiations, but it also could raise questions about internal decision-making dynamics. This is a reminder that perception and reality often move on different timelines. Just because something is widely believed does not mean it's accurate. And in moments like this, accuracy matters. See how I just took that and went different with it. And the final thing I wanted to give you before I go here. Across every segment of this episode, a consistent pattern has emerged: confusing, competing narratives, and selective framing of facts. Whether it's a ceasefire with unclear terms, political claims about past events, or viral stories mixing verified and unverified information. The common thread is a lack of clarity. In modern conflict, controlling the narrative is just as important as controlling physical territory. Information moves quickly, and the first bit execution of that story often becomes the most influential, regardless of its accuracy. Right? So in the nut, basically, bro, what I gave you was a whole bunch of shit. I didn't really go into attacking anyone. What I wanted to do was give you this right here. Because I wanted to be fair about this thing, right? I read a lot of news. I check out a lot of stories because I want to be informed. And then I fact check and I come here and I realize, well, I wanted to come back here and let you know that I wanted to be fair about the situation. I wanted to be fair about the uh, the news and information I give you because I know most of the time it seems like I'm really attacking people, and it's not that. I just really again believe that most people don't have enough time to go research and look for things. And if I give you information that sounds pertinent or it interests you enough for you to go look and do your own research and verify your own information, then I'm doing the thing that I love. Uh, I'm doing the thing that makes sense to me. So, because we live in an America that it's tough. Everything's in disarray. Food prices, gas prices, clothing, inflation. People selling their houses or losing their houses and foreclosures and all of those type of things. And it wouldn't be fair for me to show up every day and give you information. And I've given you some quality information, but I wanted to also be the type of person to call out some of the media outlets that present information to you because some of it, what you're being fed, is propaganda and it's not uh, the truth. Or it's rushed information because we got to get stories out on a daily basis because that's how somebody gets paid and somebody makes their money. And should it be that way? I don't know. But it is that way. And the most powerful weapon in any conflict is not force, it's information. So I wanted to give you the information. Because once people believe something, they act on it. And once they act on it, outcomes begin to change. So I wanted to give you information that you can act on. That's why it's so important to understand not just what's being said, but why it's being said, how it's being framed, and who benefits from it. Because the truth is not always the loudest voice, but it is always the most important one. So I wanted to come on here. I come over here a week because I want to give you information that allows you to ponder and question whether I'm giving you the right information. And in turn, it will cause you to go and look and see whether or not what I'm saying is accurate. And in turn, it causes you to use your critical thinking skills and determine what's best for you and your family and the country that you live in. And when it comes time to vote again, you get a chance to evaluate the thing down the middle and make the choice, regardless of whether Democrat or Republican, you make the choice that you deem is best for you. So as you leave this episode, don't just carry the headlines with you. Carry the mindset of questioning, verifying, and thinking deeper. Because awareness is what separates who follow the narrative. from those who understand the narrative. And with that being said, as always, keep your head on the swivel. Always look and be watchful. And I'll see you before you see me. And remember, I see what you're doing. Until next time, y'all be easy. And I'm out.
www.enter-effect.com for more info, beats, and designs. These beats available for $30 and exclusive beats starting at $150.
Make your next move. Shine along with your girls, I do my do. Yeah. So we can all play.